Think about the closest relationship in your life right now. Chances are, even with someone you really, really adore, you've hit those moments. Those times where your perspectives or habits, maybe even really core beliefs, just they just differ.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like you're both weaving this, I don't know, intricate tapestry together.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But you're using threads that are completely different colors, different textures
Yeah.
sometimes. And, well, sometimes they clash a bit, create a little friction.
That's a really insightful way to frame it, actually. And that's exactly what we're diving into today, these inevitable differences that just pop up in close relationships. But the key thing to grasp, I think, is that these aren't necessarily mistakes in the pattern. They're not flaws.
Right.
In fact, they often make the whole thing richer, more complex, more interesting, really.
Exactly. So
Um,
our goal today, it isn't about, like, trying to iron everything out and make it all uniform. That's not realistic.
no, definitely not.
Instead, we want to sort of unpack why these differences exist,
Mhm.
and maybe more importantly, how you can navigate them.
Yeah.
Navigate them in a way that actually makes the relationship stronger, keeps those little friction points from, like, unraveling the whole thing.
Absolutely. And this is relevant for, well, pretty much anyone who shares a significant chunk of their life with someone
Yeah,
else.
anyone in any kind of close relationship.
And these differences, they can show up in just so many ways. Take something as seemingly basic as how we communicate.
Oh, yeah, big one.
You might have one person who, processes everything internally, very direct, maybe even blunt when they finally speak.
Assertive.
Right. While their partner might be much more tuned into subtle cues, maybe communicates more indirectly, or maybe they prioritize keeping the peace over, say, immediate confrontation.
Or, okay, think about money. How we handle finances, that's
It
huge.
is always a class.
They've got this super meticulous planner, right?
Yeah.
Tracking every single penny, versus maybe the more spontaneous spender who's focused on, enjoying the moment now.
And those are fundamentally different ways of looking at resources, security, even pleasure. They can become real flashpoints if you're not aware and talking about them.
Totally. And then there are just like lifestyle habits, rhythms.
Mm-hmm. Like sleep schedules. You mentioned that before. A night owl whose best ideas come at 11 p.m.
Yeah. Paired with an early bird who's like bouncing off the walls at 6 a.m.
Seems simple, right? But it affects shared time, routines, even how connected you feel.
And social stuff, too. One person thrives in big crowds, gets energy from it,
The extrovert.
while the other needs quiet time, solitude to recharge.
The introvert. And even just how you spend your downtime, your free time, that can be a source of divergence.
And it goes deeper than just habits, doesn't it?
Mhm.
We're also talking about really deeply held values, beliefs, stuff that's been, formed over years and years.
Oh, absolutely. Think about really fundamental things. How you want to raise children, maybe.
Yeah. Core career goals, or even just like your basic moral compass, how you see right and wrong in the world.
Precisely. And even just inherent personality traits can cause misunderstandings, like the classic introvert-extrovert thing we just mentioned.
Right.
The introvert needing that alone time to recharge might look like they're being withdrawn or uninterested to their more extroverted partner.
When really it's just how they're wired,
Yeah.
how they refuel their energy.
Exactly. It's just a different operating system in a way.
So, okay, when you look at this whole range, this whole spectrum of potential differences, it really kind of boils down to one big question, doesn't it?
What's that?
When these differences come up, do couples see them as like roadblocks,
Yeah.
obstacles to fight over? Or,
Mm.
or do they see them as chances to maybe get a wider view, to learn something, to grow together?
Yes. Obstacle or opportunity. That really is the crux of it, isn't it? That
Yeah.
perspective shift.
Yeah, that seems key.
And to really get a handle on how couples land on either side of that question, we kind of need to take a step back. We need to look at the underlying reasons why these differences are there in the first place.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. Where do these differences actually come from? What are the roots?
A huge influence, you can't really overstate it, is our upbringing,
Our families.
our families, the dynamics we grew up with, the values that were, explicitly taught or maybe just soaked in, how feelings were handled, they talked about openly, shoved under the rug.
Right. How did people argue? Or did they argue?
Exactly. All of that creates this kind of internal blueprint for what we expect and how we behave in our own adult relationships later on. So, for instance, someone from a very emotionally expressive family might really struggle to connect with a partner who comes from a more reserved background.
Yeah, they might see it as cold or uncaring, maybe.
Precisely. Not realizing it's just a different learned pattern based on those early family experiences.
That makes a ton of sense. Our childhood environment really does set a stage. What else plays a big role?
Well, definitely our individual past experiences,
Mhm.
both in, say, previous romantic relationships and just life in general, they leave marks.
Like scars? Sometimes. Or just lessons learned.
Both, probably.
Yeah.
Someone who's been betrayed badly in the past, they might understandably bring some significant trust issues into a new relationship. That's a direct result of that past experience.
Sure.
Or maybe someone who had to be a caregiver early on, maybe for a parent or sibling. They might naturally slip into a very nurturing, perhaps even over-functioning role in their current partnership.
Huh. Okay. So these lived experiences really shape our reactions or
Wow.
sensitivities,
Yeah.
maybe even in ways we don't fully realize.
Often in ways we don't consciously realize, yes. It becomes part of our default setting.
So it's not just nature, it's also the nurture part, the journey we've been on.
Exactly. And then you also have to factor in the inherent parts of our individual personalities, the core traits that just are part of who we are.
The stuff we're kind of born with.
Largely, yes. It influences our preferences, how we cope with stress, how we generally interact with the world. Think about someone who's naturally very detail-oriented versus someone who's more of a big picture thinker.
Right. One focuses on the trees, the other sees the forest.
Precisely. And neither is right or wrong, but those are inherent tendencies. They aren't really choices. And they can lead to very different ways of approaching, well, almost anything.
And that can cause friction if you don't recognize it as just a fundamental difference in wiring.
Yes. Understanding these core personality needs and styles is crucial. It helps explain why seemingly small things can become major issues if they aren't acknowledged as just part of who each person is.
Different wiring. Got it.
And then, layered on top of all that, we absolutely cannot ignore the influence of society and culture.
Ah, the bigger picture stuff.
Yeah, things like traditional gender roles, even if we consciously reject them, they can still exert a pull. Cultural norms around, say, how directly you should communicate or how conflict is viewed. Is it something to be avoided at all costs or tackled head on?
Right. And societal expectations about what a good relationship or a successful life even looks like.
All of it. These broader cultural scripts often run in the background, shaping our expectations, how we interpret our partner's actions, often without us even being aware of it.
Wow. Okay, so it's this really complex mix then. Our personal history, our basic personality, and the cultural soup we swim in, all coming together to make us unique individuals.
Which inevitably means there will be differences when two unique individuals try to build a life together.
So recognizing all those sources, that seems really important.
It's incredibly valuable because when we start to understand where these differences might be coming from, it allows us to hopefully shift our perspective.
How so?
Well, instead of that knee-jerk reaction when your partner has a different view, thinking they're wrong or why can't they see it my way?
Yeah, getting defensive.
Exactly. Instead of that, try to approach it with genuine curiosity.
Curiosity, like
Ugh.
actively trying to figure out the why behind what they think or feel, not just focusing on the what that's different from me.
Precisely. Making a conscious effort to think, okay, what experiences, what influences might have shaped their perspective on this? What needs might be underneath this stance?
That feels like a big shift, moving from judgment to curiosity.
It is a big shift. And it's absolutely foundational if you want to navigate these differences constructively. It's about building bridges, not walls.
Okay, so we've established differences are pretty much guaranteed. They're part of the deal in relationships.
Yep, par for the course.
So now, let's really get practical. Let's get down to brass tacks. What are some concrete ways, some strategies for navigating these differences effectively, like in a way that actually makes the bond stronger, not weaker?
Right. Well, the absolute cornerstone, you really can't build anything without it, is communication.
Okay, but everyone says communication. What kind are we talking about?
That's the key distinction. We're not just talking about, stating your case. We're talking about open, honest, and I'd add explorative communication.
Explorative. What do you mean by that?
It means creating a space, a genuinely safe space, where both people feel they can express their real thoughts, their feelings, their underlying needs, without worrying about being judged, dismissed, or attacked.
Okay. Safe space.
Yeah.
Non-judgmental.
And the explorative part is crucial. It's shifting away from reactive communication where you're mostly just defending your own point of view.
Right. Trying to win the argument.
Exactly. Shifting from that to a mode where your main goal is to Truly understand your partner. Understand their perspective, the needs driving it, even if the way they're expressing it feels maybe clumsy or even hurtful initially.
So it's less about broadcasting my own stuff and more about really tuning in,
Yeah,
trying to hear what's underneath what they're saying.
precisely. And that brings us right to active listening,
Yep.
which is not just politely waiting for your turn to talk.
Guilty as charged sometimes.
We all are.
Yeah.
But active listening means really concentrating, giving your partner your full attention, showing them, verbally and non-verbally, that you're engaged. Maybe summarizing back what you heard them say. So it sounds like you're feeling X because of Y, just to make sure you got it right.
And acknowledging their feelings, too, even if I don't agree with their point.
Absolutely critical. I can see why you'd feel frustrated about that. It shows respect. It shows you're trying to connect, not just debate.
And empathy feels like it's woven all through that, right? Trying to actually step into their emotional world for a minute.
Deeply intertwined, yes. Consciously making an effort to imagine your partner's emotional experience that can bridge huge gaps that logic alone can't cross. Asking yourself those questions. How might they be feeling right now? What fear or need might be driving this reaction? That fosters compassion. It turns potential conflict into a chance for connection.
Okay, understanding, listening, empathy. But then sometimes you just disagree. What happens then? Compromise has to come in somewhere, doesn't it?
Inevitably. It's just not realistic to expect two people, no matter how much they love each other, to line up perfectly on every single issue. It won't happen.
So, finding middle ground.
Finding mutually acceptable middle ground, that's key. Where both partners feel like, okay, maybe I didn't get everything I wanted, but my core needs were heard, acknowledged, and met to a reasonable degree. And real compromise isn't one person constantly giving in either. That just builds resentment.
Right. It's not about keeping score.
No, it's about collaborating to find solutions that genuinely work for the us, not just for the me or the you.
What about boundaries? That feels important, too, for stopping resentment before it starts.
Oh, vital. Absolutely vital. Recognizing and, crucially, respecting each other's individual limits, needs, personal space. It's fundamental.
So what does that look like in practice?
It could be anything, really. Agreeing on needing some dedicated alone time each week, setting clear expectations about family visits or social events, maybe even setting ground rules for how you'll discuss certain hot-button topics to make sure things don't get out of hand.
Okay, so you both feel safe and respected, even when talking about hard stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It prevents that slow buildup of resentment that can be so corrosive.
And let's be real, disagreements are just.
Huh.
They're going to happen. You can't avoid them forever. So how can couples handle those moments constructively?
Yeah, developing healthy conflict resolution skills is just essential because disagreements are inevitable. It's not if, it's how. The way you navigate those disagreements determines whether they pull you apart or actually, sometimes, bring you closer by forcing you to understand each other better.
So what are some of those skills?
Well, focusing on the specific issue at hand, not making it personal, avoiding dredging up ancient history or throwing out insults.
Stick to the problem, not the person.
Precisely. Knowing when to take a break if things get too heated, saying, look, let's pause this for 20 minutes and come back when we're calmer.
Okay, timeouts.
And this is a big one, being willing to sincerely apologize when you mess up, and also being willing to forgive. Holding on to grievances indefinitely just poisons the well.
Right. Apologize and forgive. Those are skills in themselves.
They really are. Takes practice.
Okay, so those are some really solid foundational strategies.
Yeah.
Communication, empathy, compromise, boundaries, conflict skills. What else? Can couples go beyond just managing differences? Can they actually, appreciate them, benefit from them?
Now this is where it gets really interesting, I think, because yes, absolutely. When couples intentionally make that shift,
Which shift?
the shift from being, irritated or annoyed by their partners, that's the Bengali word, it means difference or diversity shifting from annoyance to actively appreciating the unique things they bring. It can be completely transformative.
Appreciating the other person. Oh, I like that. So, instead of being annoyed that my partner is super organized and I'm not.
Right. You might recognize how their meticulous planning actually helps keep things running smoothly, how it complements your more spontaneous approach.
Or maybe how a partner who's naturally more cautious provides a really valuable counterbalance to someone who tends to jump into things.
Exactly. Seeing those complementary aspects, recognizing how your differences together actually make the partnership more well-rounded, maybe more resilient. That fosters real appreciation, real respect. It moves beyond just tolerating differences to actually valuing them.
A powerful reframe. And I imagine things like shared rituals, traditions,
Mm-hmm.
those help build connection even when you have differences, right?
Oh, hugely important. Intentionally creating those shared touch points, whether it's a non-negotiable weekly date night
Right.
or taking up a hobby together, or even just simple daily routines like having coffee together every morning.
Yeah.
Those things build a strong sense of us, a shared identity. They create this kind of secure base, this reservoir of goodwill that makes navigating the inevitable differences feel less threatening, more manageable.
That makes sense. Gives you something solid to stand on. And
Oh.
what if you try all this stuff, but you're still really stuck on certain issues,
That's a really important point. Sometimes, despite your best intentions and efforts, you might need some outside help.
like therapy?
Exactly. Seeking external support, like couples therapy, can be incredibly beneficial. There's no shame in it. A good therapist provides a safe, structured space to explore these differences. They can help you identify maybe unhelpful communication patterns you're stuck in, or understand the deeper roots of recurring conflicts. And they can offer specific tools and strategies tailored to your situation.
It gives you a neutral third party and some expert guidance,
Precisely. And one more thing that helps. Having some shared, bigger picture.
like shared goals, values.
Yes. When you're fundamentally aligned on the big stuff, your core values, your long-term vision for your life together, it tends to put the smaller differences into perspective. It creates the strong anchor, this shared why. And that makes it easier to navigate disagreements about, where to go on vacation or what color to paint the living room because you're fundamentally on the same team heading in the same direction.
So putting it all together,
Yeah.
it really sounds like navigating differences isn't something you just achieve and then you're done. It's more like an ongoing process.
Exactly right. It's continuous. It requires ongoing patience, constant understanding, and a real commitment from both partners to keep learning, keep growing
Yeah.
as individuals and as a couple.
It's like tending a garden, maybe.
Yeah.
Not a one-time fix.
That's a lovely metaphor. It's a constant evolution. It's about continually choosing to shift from that you versus me stance.
The battleground.
Right. Shifting from the battleground to a collaborative us working together against the problem mindset. That's the journey.
Listening to all of this, thinking about navigating differences in our closest relationships, it really makes me think about how this applies to just navigating life's challenges in general.
That's a wonderful connection to make. Tell me more.
What it's like,
Well,
picture a river,
yeah.
right? Trying to get to the ocean.
Okay.
It constantly runs into obstacles, rocks, sharp bends, maybe a fallen tree, changes in the land.
It's never a straight line.
Exactly. But the river doesn't just stop. It doesn't give up. It adapts. It finds new ways around. Sometimes it goes over. Sometimes it slowly carves its way through things that seem impossible.
Persistent,
Great.
flexible.
Yeah. And it strikes me that maybe the differences and the challenges we face in relationships and just in life,
Yeah.
maybe they aren't meant to stop us. Maybe they're actually the things that push us to adapt, to find new paths, to ultimately to grow stronger, to become more resourceful.
That is a very powerful analogy. I really like that. And it perfectly underscores the importance of embracing,
Yeah, you mentioned that word before.
Yeah.
The Bengali word.
yes, for difference, diversity, variation. It's such a beautiful concept because it captures the inherent richness that comes from variation. It's not just noise, it's potential. And that's true not just in our personal relationships, but everywhere. In nature, in society, in ideas. These variations, these differences, they lead to new perspectives, to creativity, to innovation, to a much deeper, more textured understanding of everything around us.
Right. And it can be tempting sometimes, can it? To shy away from things that feel different or uncomfortable, like difficult conversations or viewpoints that really challenge our own core beliefs.
Oh, definitely. Our comfort zone feels safe.
But maybe,
Yeah.
maybe the most important growth actually happens right outside that comfort zone. When we lean into that discomfort, not with defensiveness, but with that curiosity you talked about, with a genuine willingness to learn, even if it's hard.
I absolutely believe that. Growth almost always emerges from those moments where we feel stretched, where we're challenged to see something from a completely different angle. It expands our world. It expands our capacity for empathy in ways we couldn't have predicted.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, I guess I just want to encourage you, the listener, to try to embrace the whole journey of your relationships, all of it. The easy parts, the challenging parts, the harmony and the dissonance. Trust in your own ability, your own resilience to navigate those complexities.
Yeah.
With understanding, yeah, but also with patience for yourself and your partner, and, well, with grace, too.
And please remember, you truly have more capacity for resilience, for understanding than you probably give yourself credit for right now. There is an inner strength there. Tap into it. Trust it to help you navigate these inevitable differences. Believe in yourself, believe in the power of connection, and just never stop trying to understand each other better and grow together.
I really hope this conversation, this deep dive, has given you some useful insights, maybe a fresh perspective, or even just a renewed sense of hope and possibility for navigating the beautiful, messy, complex reality of your own relationships. Maybe take a little time to just reflect on some of these ideas.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope we've inspired you, even just a little, to embrace the inherent beauty of biname, of difference, and the profound power that comes from truly striving for deeper understanding.